Before Patrick Duffy ever set foot in Dallas, he taught himself a swimming technique no stunt performer had ever used before. Over the next several minutes, we're going to trace 11 facts about Man from Atlantis that most viewers never had access to, drawn from production accounts and cast interviews. Along the way, you'll learn how a single casting decision connected this strange, short-lived NBC series to one of the most famous cancellations in television history. You'll find out why the show reportedly became the first American series to air in China, and you'll find that the central mystery the writers built into the premise was never resolved because nobody ever got the chance to resolve it. 11 hidden truths about TV's strangest superhero. Number 1. The unproven gamble. Patrick Duffy was a virtual unknown when NBC handed him the lead role of a network science fiction series. When Man from Atlantis premiered in 1977, Duffy had essentially no television track record. He came from a theatrical background, not screen work, which made his casting as the lead of an NBC TV movie an unusual gamble. Duffy has described the role as the beginning of his on-camera career, not the continuation of one. The audience who later knew him from Dallas as Bobby Ewing, the role he moved into directly after this show ended, was watching the result of a network bet placed on someone they'd never seen on television before. But getting cast was only the first challenge. What the role demanded of him physically was something no one had done before, and no one had thought to teach him.
Elizabeth, what is it?
Number 2. Invented from nothing. Mark Harris's signature swimming style had to be invented from scratch because nothing like it existed. The undulating, full-body dolphin kick movement that defined the character on screen, arms pinned to the sides, propulsion coming entirely from the torso and legs, wasn't drawn from any established stunt discipline or competitive swimming tradition. Duffy developed and trained for this technique specifically because no standard stunt swimmer moved that way. It works entirely different muscle groups than freestyle swimming, offers far less directional control, and requires the performer to make something genuinely taxing look effortless on camera. Every viewer who watched the show saw the technique. Almost none of them knew Duffy had essentially invented it. That technique, once mastered, still had to be filmed, and filming it shaped the entire run of the series.
Man, where are we going?
The fast way to the ocean.
Number 3. The impossible shoot. Filming underwater created production pressures that compounded throughout the series. Underwater cinematography in the 1970s required specialized waterproof camera housings, dedicated lighting rigs that behaved differently below the surface, and shooting ratios far higher than standard coverage. The crew had to shoot substantially more footage to get anything usable. The underwater sequences were among the most logistically demanding aspects of the production. The timeline made it worse. The show began as 4 TV movies in 1977, then transitioned into a 13-episode weekly series within the same calendar year. A production challenge that was already difficult at TV movie pace became considerably more acute once the weekly clock started, which raises a question worth sitting with. Why was NBC running this kind of production at all? The answer has everything to do with what was happening across all 3 networks at once.
Ernie, there's something else.
Number 4. NBC's hidden strategy. Man from Atlantis wasn't an isolated oddity. It was part of a deliberate network superhero wave, and NBC knew exactly what it was building. By 1977, all 3 major networks were actively developing live-action superhero properties. Wonder Woman had premiered on ABC in 1975. CBS launched The Incredible Hulk that same year. Man from Atlantis was NBC's entry in that race. Its cancellation after 1 season shouldn't be read as a verdict on the property in isolation. It was one outcome within a broader network strategy, in a landscape where multiple superhero properties were being tested at once. And the show's position within that wave was complicated by an obvious comparison the producers were well aware of.
Somebody help! Jack's caught!
Number 5. The Aquaman problem. The comparison to Aquaman was immediate, sustained, and expected. The surface similarities are hard to miss. A human-appearing figure with underwater abilities connected to a lost ocean civilization in a world that doesn't fully understand him. Man from Atlantis occupied the same conceptual territory as the DC Comics character without being a licensed adaptation of him, a structural reality of the superhero landscape of the late 1970s, when the question of what distinguished one underwater hero from another had genuine commercial stakes. The show stood on its own ground. Mark Harris was an amnesiac with no confirmed origin, not a king of Atlantis. The writers leaned into ambiguity rather than differentiation, which brings us directly to the central unresolved question they built into the premise.
Put him under pressure.
Number 6. An unlikely villain. The show's primary villain was played by an Academy Award-nominated actor, and that casting was deliberate. Victor Buono, who played recurring antagonist Mr. Schubert across multiple episodes, wasn't a supporting player being handed his first significant role. He'd received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, more than a decade before he put on Schubert's flamboyant theatrical menace. Casting a character actor of Buono's stature was a deliberate choice to elevate the show's dramatic register above what its budget would otherwise suggest, a villain with genuine screen presence opposite the alien stillness of Mark Harris. By most accounts, it was the most memorable recurring element of the entire series. The people behind the camera carried their own notable histories, including one that genre audiences would recognize immediately.
Boss is complaining. A little short-handed behind the main tent.
Number 7. The Star Trek link. One of the show's producers had already overseen one of the most famous cancellations in science fiction television history. Fred Freiberger is credited as a producer on Man from Atlantis. Genre historians know that name from an earlier assignment. Freiberger produced the third and final season of the original Star Trek, the season most widely regarded as the series' weakest and the one that ended in cancellation. What isn't established is precisely what creative or production decisions Freiberger made on Man from Atlantis specifically, whether his approach contributed to the show's single-season run or whether he was brought in to stabilize a production already under pressure simply isn't documented. The connection to Star Trek is real. What it meant for this show is, at least for now, unrecorded.
Where is he from? The computer guesses.
Number 8. The missing answer. The central mystery of who Mark Harris actually was never resolved because the series was canceled before anyone got the chance to answer it. The premise was built around an ongoing structural question. Who is this man? Where did he come from? Is Atlantis real in this universe? And what does his existence mean? This wasn't an oversight. The writers constructed the show around a multi-season mystery arc in which Harris's origin would be revealed over time. The series was canceled after 13 episodes. Whatever resolution the writers had planned was never filmed, and what that answer might have been isn't documented anywhere. The audience that watched in 1977 and 1978 has been carrying an unresolved premise for nearly 5 decades, not because the writers failed to think it through, but because no one ever got the chance to put the answer on screen. What happened next, after the cancellation, surprised almost everyone involved.
Either you're going to help me get him out of here, or I'm going to do it myself.
Number 9. An unexpected audience. After Man from Atlantis was canceled in the United States, it reportedly became the first American television series to air in China. The show was sold to the People's Republic of China and broadcast there following its U.S. run, though the record here is qualified. No primary documentation of the sale date, the broadcaster's name, or independent confirmation of the first American series claim survives. What can be said without qualification is that a 13-episode NBC series, canceled after one American season, found an audience on the other side of the world in a market that, in the late 1970s, had essentially no prior exposure to American commercial television at all. A show that ran out of runway domestically became, by some accounts, a genuine introduction to American television for an entire country. That unexpected international reach makes the absence of any domestic revival even harder to account for.
Doctor, we can't just let him go.
Number 10. The revival that wasn't. Man from Atlantis has never been revived, rebooted, or formally continued, and nothing on record explains why. In an era when virtually every genre property from the 1970s superhero wave has had at least one revival attempt, Wonder Woman, The Bionic Woman, and others from the same era have all been through remake development. Man from Atlantis has not. Who currently holds the rights? Whether that's a factor in the absence of any revival, and whether anyone has actively pursued a continuation, none of it is documented. The absence is real and verifiable. The reason for it simply isn't on the record.
Somebody help! Jack's caught!
Number 11. Duffy still cares. Decades after the series ended, Patrick Duffy has continued to speak about Man from Atlantis with evident care, and he's shown up in person to make that clear. Duffy has appeared publicly to discuss the show many years after its original run, reflecting on Mark Harris without the careful distancing actors sometimes use for early work they've moved past. He hasn't treated Man from Atlantis as a footnote to something better. He's engaged with its legacy publicly and specifically, genuinely unusual when you consider the record. 13 episodes, 1 season, canceled, sold abroad, never revived. Most performers who began on a show with that trajectory would have let it recede quietly. Duffy hasn't. The ambition was real. The limitations were real. The show ran out of time before those two things could find each other. And apparently, that still matters to the man who swam in it. Man from Atlantis was a production that consistently reached beyond what its budget, its network, and its era's technology could actually support, and the space between that ambition and those limits defined nearly everything about it. From the swimming technique Duffy invented to the origin mystery nobody ever got to resolve. Which brings us to the question this show has left open for 47 years. The writers built a series-long mystery into the premise: who Mark Harris really was, whether Atlantis was real in that universe, what his existence actually meant, and then ran out of time before they could answer it. No one has ever confirmed what that answer was supposed to be, or whether the writers had one. So here's the question worth sitting with. What do you think the answer was meant to be? And would knowing it have made the show better, or would it have taken something away?